Looking at this horse walk from behind, we can see more of his barrel on the left side. So his body is probably bent to the right. Um, his pelvis moves equally on both sides, although it swings to the right side, and the tail is also to the right side. Now looking at the hips and stifles, their movement appears equal, and the hocks, we can see accessory movement of the left hock, and going further distally, the accessory movement of the right fetlock. Both hind limbs move in line with the forelimbs. Watching the horse move from the front, we can see his barrel swinging from side to side equally, and his head and neck is in a low-ish position, swinging from side to side. Well, he's looking at something on his right. Other than that, he doesn't seem to have a bend or a tilt on his head and neck. His shoulders move equally, and the carpi and distal limbs move equally as well, and they seem quite relaxed. The right forelimb, though, moves more towards the midline with a slight dishing action. And going on now to the left side, the head and neck is in a neutral position, moving rhythmically with the movements of the walk. His thoracic spine looks a little bit stiff and not moving, not flexing and extending. It's kept in extension all the time, and the lumbar spine and the pelvis have to do side bending and rotational movements to accommodate the movement of the hind limbs. And his spine, basically from the lumbar spine, appears to have left rotation that becomes more when the left hind steps on the ground, and we can also see the muscles of the back, the top line muscles, tense at the same time. The same thing is also happening with the pelvis that appears to rotate to the left, especially when the left hind limb is on the stance phase. Now, looking at the forelimb, we can see that there is a good glide of the scapula on the rib cage and a good extension and flexion of the shoulder, although the foot lands on the ground with a little bit of concussion. And moving to the hind limb, we can see that he has a good movement, good protraction of the hind limb in line with the forelimb, and the hind hoof overtracks the front. Now on the right side, again, the head and neck is in neutral position, swinging from side to side. But on this side, we can see some tension on the dorsal aspect of his neck. We don't know if this tension exists on the other side because that part of the neck was covered by his mane. So basically, we would have to feel that on the global body scan. Because of that tension, the withers appear higher and more prominent, and also there is atrophy of the muscles just behind the withers, and this makes the scapular cartilage appear more prominent and more visible. On the thoracic spine, we can also see the paraspinal muscles tense up because of this swinging of the pelvis to the right. And we confirm and see again the left rotation of the spine. Now on this side, unlike the other side where the lumbar spine goes into a little bit of flexion with every step of the hind limbs, on this side the lumbar spine goes into extension and side bending movements and rotational movements, and the lumbosacral junction goes into extension, and the pelvis doesn't rotate cranially, it rotates caudally, and the hind limb cannot engage and come under the body as effectively. Its stride is shorter, and there's also gluteal atrophy on this side. Assess the forelimb on this side. It seems that the scapula has a little bit worse movement on this side. The scapula doesn't glide as well as the other side, and the forelimb hits the ground with a little bit more concussion that we can see on the withers. Now on the hind limb, we've seen the gluteal atrophy when we were talking about the pelvis. So this inability of this side of the pelvis to cranially and caudally rotate, appearing a bit stiff, makes the lumbar spine doing all these movements, the side bending and the rotation, and the rest of the joints in the hind limb appear to be functioning well, flexing and extending the stifle, the hock, and the distal limb. The stride of the right hind is shorter, and due to this, it cannot engage, and it only pushes backwards.